the way I see it looking at the drawings, they have floor joists going rear to intermediary, which is the wall. Let me see if I can get this over for you. Okay, so floor joist going from rear wall to a beam right here that bears on this partial wall that comes off of the staircase. So this is a bearing wall in this area, and then from here there's a flush framed beam going across. So the floor joists are going front to back in this area, and then they turn and go left to right, bearing on this concrete block wall, which is a party wall and a fire wall between the two units. So they go left to right here with a, looks like on the drawings, a double beam going front to back, then bearing on this concrete block wall here, and then it's T-code, which is framed perpendicular into this beam, which goes left to right. So there should not be any weight on this wall, and I believe this is the wall you were talking about. You said it's the wall opposite the staircase between the kitchen and the living room. Whether it's this wall or this wall doesn't really matter. These are non-load bearing walls. The only thing I can see that you would see any bowing of the wall, even looking upstairs, let me get rid of that. Even going upstairs, there's no weight on the second floor that should be bearing on this wall. The only weight would be the dead weight of this partition. 8-foot partition, 8 feet tall, maybe even 9 feet tall. It's 8 pounds per square foot. Vertical sets 64 pounds per linear foot. So normally when they frame out the floor, they would double any floor joists that are underneath a partition that runs parallel to that particular floor joist. So there should be a double joist underneath that wall right here. And here you can see here's that wood beam that's going left to right. It ends on that concrete block partition, and it says here it's a bearing wall. So the living room, this is the opening for your staircase, framed for the staircase. So these are the floor joists running left to right. There should not be any bearing on that partition between the kitchen, the living room, or the kitchen and the staircase. So I don't really see how there's any bowing in the wall. The only thing I can think of is maybe did the builder or the framer, when he framed it out, did he not extend this beam from this concrete block wall to this concrete block, they call it like a cheek wall where it comes off. Maybe he framed it from this point to this point on top of that wall, and then from this point to this point, but you're not going to be able to see that unless you peel off all the sheetrock on the ceiling and the wall in this area to see if this is a continuous beam or if you broke it into two spans. There should not be, you shouldn't have a problem. You shouldn't have a problem opening up this wall completely. This right here is non-load bearing. There's no reason for it to be there. They might have just put it there as an end point to attach a railing to. Also in the 80s, they tended to design things very contemporary looking. So this would have been maybe a contemporary opening between the two rooms, between the staircase and the living room. But again, that's not load bearing. This is not load bearing. None of this is load bearing. The only thing I can think is maybe there's a little bit of sag from this partition pushing down on the floor joist, and this partition also pushing down on the floor joist. Maybe they did not, when they framed it out, they didn't run a parallel partition underneath, a parallel floor joist underneath the parallel partition. In this area over here, it again shouldn't matter because that partition on the second floor is bearing on these floor joists, and that's plenty of weight to sit on those floor joists. So that shouldn't be an issue either. So if you see some really significant sag in that wall, I would open up the entire ceiling and see if this is a beam running all the way left to right, clear spanning, or if some knucklehead in the field maybe thought it'd be a good idea. Maybe they were running out of material and they didn't have the full length beams.